In this video, we're going to be addressing the body paragraph, which is the main event of the formal letter, now that we have the introduction and the conclusion out of the way. This is where all the information falls into place and your formal letter reads as a holistic, fully structured piece of information for the examiner to grade you. Now, we're going to look at a very generic example that often appears in the O-levels exam. Usually, you get a question in which you're required to write a formal letter, let's say to the police, in which you're informing them of a theft or a burglary that happened in your house. You are going to be given the opening line, but for the main body paragraph, you're going to be provided 3 content points by the examiner. These content points usually read something like where and what were you doing when the theft happened, what you believe the burglars took from your house, and number 3, any other piece of information you can provide that will help the police catch the thieves. Once these 3 content points are over, there is another sentence that is usually embedded in the question, and that includes, you are required to provide any other information that you think the police may find useful in catching the people responsible. Additionally, another 2 keywords that are mentioned in the question are that your letter is supposed to be polite and informative. These are keywords that you really need to use to your benefit when you're writing the body paragraph. Ideally, as mentioned in the earlier videos, your formal letter is roughly 3 paragraphs. But sometimes when there's a lot of information that needs to be penned down, it is perfectly acceptable to divide your body paragraph into 2 paragraphs, especially if you have a fear of repeating yourself or writing the same thing over and over, turning it into fluff and unnecessary, irrelevant information. A lot of the times, one common mistake that students make is that they only stick to the 3 content points that have been provided. You have to remember that while the 3 content points are a good start and are elements that you need to address in your letter, they are not the end all and be all. If you follow them by the book, you may not be able to reach the word limit that has been provided to you. So that part of the question that follows up the 3 content points that provide any other information that you think that the police may find important to catching the people responsible is extremely imperative. You can curate your own information. You can add information that you think assists the 3 content points. Therefore, what you'll be able to do is meet the word limit and ensure that you're writing something that is to the point, crisp, and at the same time extremely helpful to the police, and at the same time offers the exact information the examiner is looking for in a respectful and informative manner. Now, coming to the division of paragraphs. If you want, and you may actually have to do this because sometimes the 3 content points are not a lot of information, you may be required to cluster them together. When you do that, and when you get into detail in the next point, you will be required to divide this information into 2 paragraphs for purposes of clarity and transparency for the examiner and keeping the recipient of the letter in mind. Remember, the body paragraph is where the main event happens. You have to cover everything, and at the same time, this is a glue that's going to connect it to the introduction and to the conclusion. This is not a standalone paragraph in which you can talk about irrelevant pieces of information and hope that it will all come together. It has to be cohesive. It has to connect to what you've said earlier, and it has to build up towards what you're going to be saying afterwards. Therefore, this is something that you cannot ignore. The best way for us to ensure that you've understood the rules of writing an excellent body paragraph is to answer the questions that will appear at the end of this video. Make sure that your understanding is as clear as it's supposed to be.